The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the New Media Factory. Some programs on this network might include strong images and language and may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Would you come if I asked you to ride with me on this one-way road that leads? Oh, I don't know, but I will take you anywhere you see. I know what you need, and what you've done is exactly what I
Good evening and welcome back to Counterflow, the first of the year, first show of 2013. I'm James Deacon.
I'm Alan Sevilla. Our partner Pacho is not.
I'm not Pacho. I'm Albert Cuenca, and I'm sitting in this love seat.
In the love seat this with Alan there. All right, we're off to a big start for the year. We've got a hell of a year coming up for motoring. You know, new cars coming in. It's going to be, if it's anything like last year, we're going to see a really big change in the motoring industry, which is great for everyone, especially us, because we got more to talk about. But we invited Albert onto the show because Albert is now, what is it, 2 in a row? Iron
Two
Man?
in a row.
2 in a row. So he is the Iron Man of the Philippines. And no, we're not talking about the triathlon Iron Man.
Neither are we talking the guy with the suit, right?
No, neither the guy with the suit. It's actually a round the Luzon race.
Not a race.
Okay.
We'll talk about that in a second. It's a round the Luzon event, and we'll be talking about that in just a little while. But let's open up with, well, have you done any cars? Your car, you've driven a new car recently, haven't you?
No.
No?
Just the one that he used for Iron
Yeah,
Man.
now he's got to talk about it.
We'll
that's
talk
the
about it
X1.
later.
Okay, I had the chance to drive, what did I drive? A Photon Thunder.
Photon Thunder.
Wow.
The pickup. Have you ever seen those?
Wait, my question is: Photon based on any other car platform? Like, does it have a
Used to
big
be.
foreign partner?
They used to steal off Isuzu at one point.
Okay.
I remember the first Photon Blizzard was a direct copy of the.
See,
the
but the
first
China
Fuego.
manufacturers that have some manufacturing basis, being that they used to be subcontractors for whatever,
True.
are
Yeah,
normally the better ones.
They are the better ones, but the advantage of Photon that I've seen is that they are the official truck makers of Mercedes-Benz. So they build all Mercedes-Benz trucks anywhere in the world.
There you
Okay,
go.
then the first bunch of Photons that I tried, one was the pickup was particularly awful. It really was based on the old Fuego. So if they couldn't get the original one right, you're copying already.
But that was a bestseller.
It was a bestseller. People didn't know any better back then. You know, it was just really all that they had. And you know, in the provinces, Isuzu has a very strong name. I'll give them full credit for that.
Yeah.
Diesel engines are very reliable. Matipid, parts are very accessible. It's generally build quality that I have a real issue with, and of course refinement, drivability.
Yeah.
So when the first Photons, they weren't that great, and they really looked exactly like the old Fuego.
So now they have their own look.
Then they developed a completely new one, and I think the look is actually quite nice. Now it's not.
But you're a truck guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
So-
it's got a meaty front, and it looks like a man's truck already. But it's still matagtag, really harsh.
Okay.
But
in terms of appearance, when you compare it to, say, your truck or your Navara, there's a big difference, right?
there's still a big difference. There's still another leap to make. But I'll tell you what, it may not be a Ranger, it may not be a Colorado, but I'll take it over a D-Max, the current one.
Oh, okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
It's got better steering, it drives better.
Amenities inside? What's it like inside?
It could do with a bit more softer materials and stuff, but still very utilitarian, very functional.
Oh, but does it have any CDR King products inside?
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Like Bluetooth at least,
Yeah.
or sat nav, or
No, it's not that No, they're
None.
still
Okay.
going out. They haven't quite. Maybe they'll bring in a luxury model or something. But at the moment, it's pretty just functional.
okay.
It's just functional.
It's just basic because of the
But-
price as well. How
yeah,
much is
so
it?
how much is it? I was gonna ask.
That's the thing. They didn't actually give me the exact price. I'll have to get back to you next week, or when we re-record the show, I'll post it. Here.
It's so hard to write a review when you don't know the price.
I know,
You know,
I know.
I would expect, say, 30% cheaper than any
Yeah.
the nearest competitor.
Absolutely.
Would be a really great saving for companies that
be-
looking for fleet, you know,
I would think
trucks,
about
yeah.
800 or so. If it was 800,
800.
definitely it's a great price
Okay.
for that truck. Another thing I wanted to discuss was I wrote this article today that sort of got some feathers flustered. Would you able to catch that when I posted on
Yes,
Facebook?
yes.
Do you agree or not? Okay,
I wasn't able to
All right.
read it.
Basically, the gist of it is something radical. I'm actually suggesting, proposing, throwing the idea out there, so to speak, about making deliberately causing traffic a criminal charge.
Okay,
Now,
a bit harsh.
bit harsh,
Yeah.
right? Okay, I know when I was talking to my wife about it, she also said, no, that's, I know how you feel about traffic, but that's harsh. I said, well, it's no different to theft. That's my angle, is
Yeah.
that when you deliberately, I'm not talking about, just, I'm
Breaking
talking about
down or whatever, yeah.
systematically, yes, deliberately causing traffic because of your selfishness, your arrogance, your stupidity. The kind of people that just sort of park boom, in the middle of a busy road because, well, that's just where they want to park.
Yeah.
And they'll just leave it there and all the cars have to go around. Why I call it theft is not just are you robbing us of our time. Even on a larger scale, I should actually bring this up first, because on a larger scale, I'm not so much targeting the public utility
You're
jeeps,
right.
although they should be hit as hard.
Right.
It's the schools, it's the malls, it's all these places that build and then just couldn't give us stuff about what's going on around them.
Well, yeah, in the same light, malls that build right on the national highways, which, mind you, should be illegal, they have every opportunity to build inland.
Yes, look at
but-
Rockwell.
And they'll drive traffic towards their mall. It doesn't matter how deep inland they'd be,
Yep,
and people
that's
would go to
correct.
them. But they choose to be on the major roads.
Yeah.
That I don't get.
And why are they A, not allowed, and B, not penalized for causing this
Exactly.
traffic? And that's the one I'm trying to get at. These are the people that I think who should be criminally charged. Another thing I brought up was, all right, it's bad enough that you're in an area where you're on a main road,
Yeah.
for example. You've got, let's use Walter Mart as an example. That's a hell of a place because you got
Yeah.
Don Bosco
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
side of it.
Always
So
traffic
4 or
in that
5
spot.
cars deep Don Bosco, then you have that entrance to the Walter Mart. Thankfully, they're not as strict as some other malls,
Yeah.
but you got the security guards checking. And when they check your cars, which is so pointless unless they really know what they're looking for, all they're doing is slowing people down. And the other day in Glorieta, when I was trying to get in to go around the
There's
that
a long line
garden,
already.
yeah,
the line was so long that it had overlapped the people trying to exit.
yeah.
So imagine, because you're exiting on that same
Yeah.
gardens and then you're entering on this side.
Yeah.
The line was so long that it was snaked down to the 3rd level on the basement to get out
no.
of the car park because they couldn't get out because these guys were trying to get in. So you figure, if you can picture a figure 8 but nobody giving way in the middle, that was the dilemma. So it was just gridlock.
Yeah.
And all because the guards have to check each and every car.
Yeah.
So there,
That's bad.
what are your thoughts?
My thoughts with this, I think that's the only way to solve the problem here is to have stiff penalties, because we never really learn. Take for instance, if you go to Subic, they have stiff penalties there if you break the law, so everybody follows the rules.
And they just enforce it.
Yeah, they just
really
enforce it.
Enforcement's always been our issue, right? We have laws. A lot of our enforcers are ignorant of those laws, in fact. But I have to give credit to a lot of MMDA enforcers because they do their research. They're not allowed to go on the street and make up laws themselves,
Yeah.
okay? But a lot of them are just ignorant of the laws, along with the drivers as well. And so that causes chaos as well. But enforcement has always been a challenge,
Yeah.
okay? All these colorum buses are out in the streets every day.
Yep.
They can't seem to find any way of stopping them.
But is that because of the people behind the colorum buses are very powerful people?
That too.
Yeah.
That too.
Can be.
But if you had political will, you could implement. I'll give you an
Yeah.
example of enforcement. You notice in this Ironman trip, I noticed that everywhere we went, Motorcycle.
Nice segue.
Motorcyclists, okay, scooters, whatever, they would have no helmet.
Oh,
they would be
yeah.
riding chinelas, you name it. Some even would do the weaving. I don't understand why they like to weave on the road just to test the grip of their tires. But all throughout Luzon, I noticed hardly a helmet on any motorcyclist. But get this, go to Tacloban. Every single motorcyclist has a helmet. Every single motorcycle has no more than 2 persons riding. You know why?
That's true.
Because Mayor Alfred Romualdez is a motorcyclist himself. And he implements. So it's enforcement, implementation. And I say if you have political will, you can do it. So imagine all these towns around Luzon that I passed through. If all of them had a mayor or a barangay chairman or whatever who enforced the law to say you can't ride your motorcycle without a helmet. You can't put a 5-year-old on your bike because it's against the law.
It's true.
Do you also think that we have enough cops in the city?
I believe
think
we have.
We have too many cops.
We have too many, actually.
And you know the worst part is they catch you for the wrong things and instead of enforcing or trying to free flow traffic is they're on the wait for you to commit an offense which they know you will commit at specific points.
Yes.
Right? Like, because the no right turn sign was like 300 meters before the corner.
Right.
Come on, they'll find ways
and then the way around
entrapment.
that corner.
Yeah.
A good example of that is the Zwellig Loop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
exactly. There's
one
always
of the,
guys there.
One of the only intersections, one of the very few, if not, there are very few intersections where you can't turn right on red.
Yeah.
I mean, most otherwise you're used to it already. So
Yeah.
okay, there is a sign. It is a bit back, but fairness, there is a sign. He waits around the corner, and he's always there.
It's always there. Rather than stand in the corner and tell you can't do that because
Before
you're going
you
to be
do it.
causing traffic.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
I think that's his responsibility to warn the commuters,
to
but
warn,
they don't.
to prevent.
They just don't do that.
No, and it's like wow.
That's money for them.
It is.
right?
It
You
is.
know, I actually had an incident similar a few years ago. This was on the Poveda Road between
The EDSA, and then you
going
make a
towards
right.
going towards EDSA between the mall and Poveda, and they had changed directions of this one way many times in that year. They just the one way sign, the arrow. They just kept blocking the arrow and changing the direction of the arrow, but it's the same one way sign. And I was trying to get to EDSA. I saw a cop 100 meters down the corner, so I was looking at him thinking, okay, he would have waved at me by now saying that I'm going the wrong way. No, he waited for me to get to him and then he caught me. And then he said I was reckless driving and disregarding traffic.
Wow.
Where I was thinking, if he had seen me from afar, if he was doing his job, which is to enforce the law, is to say, hey, turn back, you're going the
or
wrong
signal
way.
you to
True.
Yeah.
And I know some cops that love to park their cars right on busy roads.
Yeah.
And wait, which is already
Causing traffic too.
causing traffic.
So here's my point with your article. What I wanted to respond with was to say that it's obstruction that should be made a major violation.
yes, all right.
So
Yeah, good
anytime
point.
you are in the middle of an intersection when it's red,
because
you're
there's
obstructing.
no reason for it.
And obstruction applies to anything.
Exact. There's no reason
Okay.
for it. You know that unless you can see the other side of the intersection and you can make it, it doesn't matter what color that
Yeah,
light
yeah, yeah,
is.
exactly.
Well, actually, it does. You shouldn't go on a red light. I'm just saying,
On a
even if it's
yellow,
green,
yeah.
if it's green, you still stop. People
Yeah,
don't
when there's
get
no
that.
more space
It's
anymore.
green no
Yeah,
matter. No,
yeah,
and at
yeah.
some point it's gonna turn red, and you're gonna be stuck in the middle, and you're
Exactly.
gonna. That's the time where you're gonna do this, and then you see the cars there, so you're gonna pick up your phone and you're gonna start to text
Yeah,
and do
exactly.
this and pretend you don't
No,
see it.
unless you have tint, which most cars do.
Which
they don't
most
care.
cars do. Obstruction. You're right. That's actually
It's
a
just
better word.
obstruction.
rather than traffic, but it's obstruction.
So when a jeepney stops in a no-stop zone on a highway, it's obstruction. When you're stuck in an intersection, on a red light, it's obstruction.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
a cop is waiting in the corner of the foot of a bridge that's only 2 lanes, that's obstruction,
All right.
right?
That is true. Well, we'll read some of your reactions to this, whether you think it's too harsh. David Jimenez says, thank you. You've officially expressed my lament for years. However, you did not include traffic officers. Come on. Traffic officers caused by the traffic officers and unsynchronized traffic lights. I know that's a pet peeve
Yeah.
of yours.
Not just synchronized traffic lights, actually.
Unsynchronized, yeah.
For me, more than synchronizing the lights, what they need to do is shorten the
True.
lights. So what they should be aiming for in all stoplights is higher frequency rather than higher volume.
But,
So volume
and keep
means
it
volume.
A little bit consistent.
Yeah,
I mean, I the one
Because
that,
usually they finish all the cars in
Yeah.
this lane,
So
and after
what,
this
what you don't
lane takes a
realize is
turn.
when you're
Yeah.
when you're trying to clear volume in one direction, you're building volume in another.
Yeah, another,
so it's
yeah,
an
right.
endless cycle. But if you had just made each green light, let's say 10 seconds per direction, 10 seconds, that means you don't wait more than 10 seconds when you get stopped, right? If
Or
it's
maybe.
if it's a four-way,
yeah,
then
40
it's
seconds.
30.
30,
essentially,
yeah.
right?
The other one, I mean, like the one coming from EDSA when you are turning into Ayala and then you want to turn left into the Glorieta area. That one lets 3 cars in before it goes red.
I know,
The,
it's
the
really
arrow.
Yeah, yeah.
3 cars. I
Yeah.
counted it.
Okay.
But it doesn't do the same for the other guys. The
So-
other guys are allowed.
And this goes back to the same, I call it the caboose system, where one car always feels he's the tail end of a train. Even if it's red, he's still part of the train, so he can cross
Yeah,
the
you're
intersection. I call him the caboose, right?
I'm
He
with
thinks
you.
it's the last
Yeah.
car. So if lights had been consistent all over Metro Manila, to be short bursts of green light, you know that, it's
You don't-
okay, I'll miss the red light because I'll get through in a moment.
I have to admit though that the countdown system is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
good. In fact, I
At
had
least
some
you know.
guests here from Australia who said they'd never seen that before.
Yeah, but that got me into an accident once.
Oh yeah,
Because the guy in the opposite direction was counting my light
Yes.
and started going at the count
The
of
Jeep,
3.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Oh my
crossed at the
gosh.
count of
Yeah.
3 of the yellow.
yeah.
So, I got the intersection, he was there.
But that's user error already.
Yeah.
That's when the countdown works
Yeah.
against you, okay?
Alberto Casal says, Bert, that's Bert Casal. He says, not harsh at all. I'm sure a lot of people out there have voiced this out but don't have the clout to make a dent. Sadly, no matter how true these words are, they will fall on deaf ears. But I say keep voicing them out. Not just you, but everybody who feels the same way. With a whole lot of luck, maybe, just maybe, something can be done about it.
But going back to what you said about schools, I have to hand it to a lot of schools who are building down south.
Yeah.
You have Xavier and whoever, Poveda. They're starting to build the schools in decongested areas
Yes.
because they realize it doesn't serve them any good to be in highly congested areas.
True, but can they just? I mean, like now when it's all new, it'll be fine and dandy. But
Yeah.
then just build with that in mind. Just you have to take responsibility for the traffic you're generating.
Yeah.
Because what bugs me to no end is that anything outside your gate, wala na. That's wala akong pakialam dyan.
Well, yeah, LaSalle and Green Hills has actually done a lot.
They
to
have.
try, and they've
Considering
worked
the volume.
They've worked with the city of San Juan and then the MMDA to find ways of streamlining
True.
the system.
But how's the traffic there? Because
It's not as bad as it used to be, I have to say.
There was a time.
There was a time it was
Yeah.
useless to try to even go to Green Hills from Makati.
So
just
that
because-
people, I mean, that's a good example. LaSalle has tried. Ateneo is constantly working with the MMDA
Yes.
to do something.
Yeah.
Haven't been there in a long time, but you can see that they are working together.
And so here comes the blue versus green rivalry working.
Yeah, we should have traffic Olympics. Yeah, forget basketball. Who can have better access in and out of school? Ronnie Bermudo says, how about congestion charges, for lack of a better term, for establishments causing them?
Yeah, and you should penalize them for not providing enough parking spaces. That's another
Yes.
problem. You know that,
I
right?
know.
People waiting for parking space because the ratio simply is just off.
Yeah.
The ratio of establishment versus rental space versus allotted
True.
parking
Take for
space.
instance at the fort, it's so hard to park there.
It is, and they
My.
keep.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to the room? I mean, I don't know if this sound really crazy, but someone once told me that the original plan of the fort was to have it a walking city, and everything was just going to be. That's why they had no parking.
Yes, I remember when it was still under Manny Pangilinan. I saw the grand presentation of the fort. Okay, it was beautiful, and they had multimodal transport to get to the airport from the
Yes.
city. They said this is a city plan with the future in mind, and they were talking about the 2000s because this was back in the
90s,
I believe the early 90s when I saw it, and it made a lot of sense the way they designed the
Yeah.
city. They said that there would be enough parking, but rather than have people drive around, they'd rather have people walk around.
That's-
they'd
okay,
have
so-
enough trees. They'd have it, and the parking would normally be more on the outskirts.
Yes,
rather
it
than
was
inside.
on the outskirts, exactly. You had electric transport, you had walkways, you had, it was going to be designed to be a walking city.
Yeah, with lots of trees so that people get
Shady.
shade and it'll be cool. It made a lot of sense, but of course that didn't happen because there was
So
an
it happened there.
overbid. Yeah.
And sad to say, but now they're trying with new steel structures, but this is how bad the parking situation got in the fort. Mini, that dealership there, have to rent spaces of SNR.
Yeah.
So they park in SNR for
And
staff
it's pretty far
parking.
from their
And
place.
that's pretty far.
Yeah.
So, dalawang sakay yun. All right.
How'd
so,
you know, Jace? You tried it already.
Orbut Renault says, I'm used to and tolerate the security checkpoints and inspections that causes delays, although I doubt the people doing the inspections have actually had the proper training to do so. However, the lack of discipline on the roads and the lack of proper enforcement by the law on the offenders is what really annoys me. So that's some pretty good responses from people there. That's just some of your responses. Can't really go through all of them. But going back to that Zwelig loop and part of that, I remember when I did get busted. So I turned and I forgot completely. There was a sign, didn't see it, but it was my fault.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, let's practice what you preach. Do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it was probably the easiest apprehension the cops had, I think, in his career, because he was like, preparing for a fight.
Yeah.
And he says, sir, ano ka dyan? No right turn on red. I said, oh, really? I'm sorry. Here's my license. And he was kind of stunned.
Yeah, because usually
It's like, you realize I'm going to have to write you a ticket.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry for your inconvenience. having to do
He's
that.
shocked.
Yeah, and he was like,
He doesn't
I'm
experience.
really going to do this now. And then he pulls
He's
the pen
waiting
out
for
ever
you.
so slowly.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna happen. Yes, I understand. And once again, I'm ashamed for what I've done. And let it be. Just let me go through the system. And he went through the system, and sure enough, he wrote ever so slowly, gave me the ticket. I got the ticket, gave him my license, and drove off. And I thought, well, felt a little bit proud of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Went through the system. And do my bit to not promote corruption, because you're a hypocrite.
You've gotten your license
You are a
already, James.
hypocrite if you say
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're like, boss, baka pwedeng
But how's the
guys."
experience getting your license, Jay?
There we go.
That's another episode. That's an
part
entire
two.
episode.
I turned
Maybe
up.
2 columns worth.
Yes, I turned up to the office there in what's that street? Malugay. Is it Malugay Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
I turned up to the Malugay Street.
Oh, so wait, this is Mapsa that caught you.
Yes.
The guys in
Oh,
yellow.
yellow.
Okay.
Okay, the yellow guys.
The
Okay.
guys in yellow. So I walk up there and I thought, no, well, you do the time. You did the crime, so it's fine. I walk in and there are people already waiting outside. As in the
Yeah.
street. Sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boss, license. Yeah, I'm just going to claim my license. Okay, sige, akin na, 500.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of them
Hindi mo alam
outside.
kung anong offense.
Yeah.
Hindi pa kasi, I didn't tell you what I did. I mean, I didn't even give you, bala. 500. I said, no, but 500. Anyway, sorry, they took too long, too late, whatever. They gave me my license, and it was from a little box. There you go. So, despite my best efforts.
My driver went to Mapsa just this morning to get his license back. And just a few days ago, he was apprehended behind the new Zwelig building. Okay, not the Zwelig loop. The Zwelig building between Urdaneta and the Zwelig building.
Oh, yeah, that nice one, yeah.
By the atrium, right? He was double parked with hazards.
Makes the atrium look even older now.
It's a nice building, narrow street. BAR is next door, so you have
Okay.
lots of cars there. He was on a hazard, waiting for a parallel parking space to get free. Within 10 minutes of waiting, he was nabbed for illegal parking. But he was in the car, hazards on, waiting. I told him he should have waited inside Urdaneta because he actually has a sticker for Makati, but just anyway. But that's water under the bridge, right? But he was apprehended by the boys in yellow for illegal parking. I don't get that. They should have just waved them through and said, "Boss, hindi
You're
ka
not allowed."
pwede
Yeah.
dyan
Yeah.
kasi nakakasikip ka." I'll admit that my driver probably was wrong. I mean, I'd say you shouldn't be, unless you know someone's leaving, you shouldn't be waiting there.
Yeah.
So I told my driver, don't do that next time. Drive around if you have to, go inside the village or go to the mall or whatever, parking, but don't be waiting that long
Yeah.
for a parking space that you know won't free up.
True.
Right? But then I still don't understand why it was illegal parking if you were in the car.
You don't want to get me started on the
Okay.
tow truck stories, because
Well, I have my share of that too.
I know. You won't have time for your Iron Man. And, Let me see. Yeah, we're already halfway into the show, just over. Okay, one tow truck story, just one. Yeah, I was actually I pulled into the thing, and you know the feeling where am I in the box? I just wasn't sure if I was in the box.
Okay.
It was dark, and I thought, did I get the box? So I opened the car door, and it's still running. And I checked, man, I'm not in the box. So I walked back into the car. I mean, like doors, I didn't even close the door. Back, jack, they locked it.
Oh yeah.
And
What?
then yes.
Yeah.
Big argument there. And I said,
Wow.
whoa,
That's like
whoa.
faster than you know.
yeah. Whoa, what happened? Anong problema? Hindi tayo sa box eh.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
Beyond the box.
Why? Exactly.
We were beyond the box.
Why they haven't been exposed by all those triple X and whatever.
And how do you
I
do
don't
that,
understand.
Jay? For example, you want to contest it.
Oh
you
no,
have a problem with that.
I gave them that time. I was not going to back down because it was
But
already.
just verbally.
No, I was screaming. It got physical at one point because I tried to get the thing off and the guy grabbed me, so I pushed, which in hindsight maybe I should. But it was already, the only thing that saved me were the residents on because it was on Alfaro Street,
Yeah.
which is now La Vista or whatever the other way around. Can never keep up with the name changes.
Okay.
All the residents up there were yelling because they are so familiar with the scams.
They knew that. Yeah.
This is a few years ago, so
Wow.
I don't know if they've gotten any better. And the residents were yelling, "Oh, maya naman kayo, mga aswang!" There were some things thrown.
You know what? Okay, you know what works? A cell phone camera.
The what?
So I
Yeah, you
saved,
should
I
record
saved,
it,
I saved
yeah.
somebody who was being towed for some stupid, reason, and I took a picture of the officer. I said, "Lalabas ka bukas sa triple X." They let her go.
Yeah,
But that was my good deed for the day.
But what if the cops get pissed at you?
That's
How are you
That's,
gonna defend
it's
yourself?
scary too.
It's a
yeah.
risk.
Yeah,
too.
it's a
Nowadays,
risk,
when you pull up a cell
Yeah.
phone, it's
Yeah.
like pulling
They
up
know.
a
No,
gun.
but if you
Yeah.
know you're in the right and they are apprehending you or whatever, giving you some bogus offense, just take their picture. They get scared.
Yeah. And just tell them it's already live on Skype so that, even if they do beat you
I
up.
think that would be a good device to just install a video cam inside your car that they don't know. So, for example, they catch you, at least you're recording what's happening outside.
Or
your
you do
car.
what the guys in Candid Camera do. You see behind that mirror there? Maraming camera.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Oh, well. All right. So you've got about 15 minutes or so to wrap up. Tell us about Iron Man.
Okay,
I joined you 1 year.
You joined me 1 year.
Give us a
That was the
background
second year
first.
that
How
cars
many
were
times have
allowed.
you joined, Albert?
This is my third time.
third time. Okay.
So this is an event that started in 2006. It was organized by Boss, the BMW Owners of Safe Riders Society. Right.
So for you
I
to
don't know if I
join,
got
are
it
you
right.
invited, or you
The
just-
first time I joined was because Juni Binamira had run the first year that cars were allowed. That was what, 3 years
That
ago,
was
4 years ago.
09, yeah.
Yeah, and you didn't join that, but your friend did.
Yes,
and he
I was. I was in a Genesis.
And that time there were only
Okay.
like less than a dozen cars
Yeah,
that
yeah.
joined. And when Juni joined, he was actually in the Miata top down all the way. So it's just as bad as the bikes, right?
Yeah.
But their Miata kept breaking down, overheating. So he had talked to me about it, and when we found out that C was invited to drive it in an X1, I wanted to join,
Yeah.
but my own car wasn't up to speed. I decided, hey James, let's just do this together because it's going to be our first time anyway, and be a barrel of fun, right? So
Yeah.
so we did it. We came in second, and we came in. Mind you, this is not a race. Everybody says it's not a race. The challenge is essentially to do the 1,200 kilometers within 24 hours, and non-stop, right? If you can do that, that in itself is the accomplishment. That's the driving.
It's like a marathon.
What are the obstacles? Do they hand you the map?
So
What
all
usually
you're supposed to
happens, for
do
example?
is check into the checkpoints. That's
Okay.
it. They'll give you a little
alright.
card, get it stamped, and you go. So you start in Balintawak. The year before, I think it was somewhere in Ortigas. It was really hell because of traffic.
yeah.
So they had moved it to Balintawak just before the NLEX. And you take off from there. You can do a loop to a destination that's only 100 kilometers away. You take a 1,200 kilometer route, which is essentially is riding around the whole northern loop of Luzon, right? So this is the eastern side, the northern side, the western side, back to Clark, and Clark would be the end. right? So this is the 4th year that cars were allowed, and my 3rd year to run. I ran it last year. I arrived first in a BMW X1 18D. The year before that, we had an 18i,
Okay.
which was like a turtle.
Yeah. All right.
And the thirsty turtle.
Thirsty.
A very thirsty turtle.
Of course.
But we were saved by the GPS because we didn't
Okay.
get lost.
Oh.
So that's
okay.
part of the challenge is the navigational.
But all the cars and the motorcycles, they have GPS.
No.
No, some
it's-
people.
One year it was sponsored, but we took our own.
So
We had two Garmins or three
So
Garmins?
you
We
have
had
to
two
be
garments,
equipped
yeah.
as well.
Two garments,
You-
two
you-
iPads.
we had iPads, phones,
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, but so imagine for the motorcyclists because
Yeah.
they can't really be staring at the GPS.
True,
right?
that's so hard.
They really have to rely on
Yeah.
In fact, you see the Northern Star, you know you're doing it right. So you're going up north in the evening. So this starts off at night. We were flagged off at 10 p.m. for the cars and 11 for the bikes. It used to be a midnight
Yeah.
flag off, but they decided to do it a little earlier because it was a way of getting it over and done with better because that's when the streets are emptier. Okay, so
Yeah, 'cause you hit peak hour in the morning.
yeah, so and it becomes much longer because once you hit peak hour in the provinces, then
Yeah.
it stretches the
And
event.
you really prepare for this. Like
You prepare
really sleep
more than
first
more than anything is stamina. But if you prepare properly, like in my case, and I'm gonna give away my secrets, I sleep at 6 a.m. the day of the flag off,
Oh, okay.
and I sleep until 2. I take a sleeping pill too, just to make sure.
Yeah, because you
nothing
get too
wakes me
excited
up.
as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So I wake up at 2 p.m., 3 p.m. I'm relaxed the whole afternoon. Then I buy food and whatever to take into the car. Then I meet with my co-driver. Then we go to the flag off.
Yeah.
And I equipped myself with 2 Garmins this year with the latest maps from Road Guide Philippines, which and then I plotted all the checkpoints in there. This year the rule was simple: if you hit all the checkpoints, then you're good to go. It doesn't matter where you pass.
Okay.
But you see, there's nowhere else to pass if you had to hit the checkpoint. There's
Yeah.
only one way. That was the point of the checkpoints. Okay,
Right.
so, as I said, some people argue with me that it's dangerous and they said they shouldn't be doing. It's not a gumball rally. You
Okay,
do it at
Is
your
it?
own pace. In fact, there are guys who did it in 23 hours, 24 hours. Okay, they'll take the whole day to do it. A good friend of mine who owns Flying V, last year did it with his wife. They came back at 6 p.m. the next day, or something
But
like that.
isn't there a natural incentive to come in first?
No,
I mean,
there's no trophy.
no, there's no trophy.
There's
but
there's no time published either. It's a personal
So you're
challenge.
technically
But-
not
but-
Iron Man. You
I
should
am
have
I
somebody
am
else on the show.
in my book. In
But
my
you always
book,
want to be first, right? You always want to be first.
no, the truth is, anyone who's completed this is Iron Man.
yeah.
That's the whole point. Iron Man. In fact, so they've published all the finishers today. There was no finishing order. It's alphabetical. There was no time
But
published.
for the people, it's only Albert's Iron Man.
Yeah. Well, I recorded my time and I published my own time because I was proud
and
of how
people
I
did
did
the
it.
math and went, holy hell!
But your average speed was 100, Albert.
My
That's
average
pretty
was
quick,
100.
too.
But I
Yeah.
have to say this. I did not drive this any differently from the way I would normally drive out of town. I did Ilocos Sur in 445 before. Driving fast on provincial roads. For me, I'm just looking for that endless and long drive where I can enjoy the car. That's why I joined this event.
So what car did you use this time? Was the
So again, they lent us an BMW, Asian Car Makers Corporation, lent us a BMW X1 18D. It's a 1.8 liter diesel S-Drive, which is a 2-wheel drive, in the M Sport trim.
Okay.
So white M Sport makes a difference because the seats were wonderful with the bolsters, and
Okay.
you can configure it like 100 different ways. So I was in like a race car position, so I knew I was snug in my chair. So
And that helps with
This is a
fatigue
different
lot.
X1 from the last.
the last one was an executive edition.
Oh,
this is
I
the
see.
M Sport edition.
Oh, okay, all right.
The M Sport, you get the Alcantara leather seats, the nice M
So
steering
how much
wheel.
did you cut off your time?
2 hours compared to the year
Just
before.
from the seats?
Well, no.
I want them seats.
It's the same car, yeah, but no.
But the power, the
no,
engine, is there a difference?
No, it's the same. It's the same
Same.
car.
Could it be the 10 p.m. flag off?
No, we were flagged off at 10 p.m. the last year also.
So what?
The
2 hours?
DPWH. I have to commend Babe Singson for completing the roadworks around this loop. I'd say about 95% were well paved.
Wow.
Mostly in the Ilocos areas, beautiful
Yeah,
roads
Ilocos is
Yeah,
with,
that's
with,
amazing.
with new painted white stripes for safety, with cat's eyes and all. I would say Iligan was
yeah.
one of the worst, wherein no stripes, it's concrete, very like hand graded concrete. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Very rough roads, but no construction, and maybe just a few road cuts for road maintenance. But otherwise, the whole route was clean. My only incident was a cat. I mean, sorry to say.
You killed the cat.
I killed the cat. No, well, I wouldn't know because we didn't see it after. But they say they have 9 lives, right? I don't know how many I took. I must have taken out a lot, if not all. But you know, that cat dart in the middle of the night darted from left to right, and I braked. We heard the thud, and I said, "Oh God, poor cat." Forged on. First checkpoint. You know, we were loading up with gas on our first gas stop, and Junior was looking at the car and he goes, "Damn, did the cat do that?" I said, "What are you talking about?" There was a huge dent
It's dead, yeah.
in the bumper.
Ooh,
It was
really?
probably the head of the cat. But you know, this is the M Sport bumper. It's plastic,
So
so
it's just-
all we had to do was just heat gun and bend it back. A little scarring on the plastic, but the car was good to go too.
Wow. Wow. All right.
How
Well,
long did it
but I
take
have-
you, Albert, this time? How many hours?
12:17. 12 hours.
17.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
No, but I have to say this: the car. I cannot. Let's talk about cars, right? So aside
Yeah.
from the travel, the car is a joy to drive. The car has DSC, which works flawlessly. It keeps you out of trouble.
I saw that.
Okay, yeah, yeah. There's a secret video out there, and the ABS, DSC, but more than anything, the handling on this car, it beats any. It's very sports car like, very firm, yet very nimble. But it has the ride height of a small SUV.
Yes. Because so ideally, if you could pick any car to do this ride again,
Yeah.
money no object,
X1 again.
it would still be.
In
X.
fact,
Wow.
I'll tell you what. I'm so convinced. This is the 3rd year that I've used an X1. Second year that I've used the X1 diesel, right? If I were to choose one car to drive every day in my life here in this country, it would be the X1.
Wow.
And
that's
I've
great.
tried a lot of cars.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's frugal, right? I only consume 2.5 tanks of diesel.
Wow.
So you only filled up twice
1.5
One and a
tanks.
half times.
That's why our total stoppage time was 9 minutes.
versus when we went out, it was
Oh
something
man,
like.
it's like 20 minutes of stoppage. I don't
probably
know.
more, yeah.
More, yeah. That was one
It's like
gas station.
We stopped 5 times.
5 times for fuel.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then you start thinking that this whole exercise is a waste of
Yeah.
resources.
How
too,
did you
right?
feel after, Albert? 12 hours driving. Were
Oh.
still
You know,
okay
I
after?
was still full of adrenaline. I was so happy
Yeah.
to actually just complete it. But knowing that I beat my record, knowing that I almost beat the
it's
bikes
not a
too.
race.
That's all that matters.
It's not a race. That was my personal challenge, and I'll say
Yeah.
that it's not a race. And it's the same way. When I go to Baguio, I want to get to Baguio in the quickest time possible, on any given day. Doesn't have to be in an event.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm not racing anything. This is just the way I am. I want to be there. In 3 hours, I'll do it in 3.
So this event is open to anyone.
Anyone.
right?
Anyone. A lot of people got this impression that you had to own a BMW.
Yeah, yeah.
Or get invited, or so
No,
you can just.
no.
How much is there an entrance fee?
Entrance fee is 5,000 for cars, and I think it was
Wow.
like 2,000 for motorcycles.
And you have to fork your own for gasoline, right? And
Yeah.
everything.
And there's
Everything.
well, was it sponsored this year by a gas company?
No,
No.
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 They
Sorry
didn't-
about that.
They didn't have one. But yeah, you're on your own expense. The way this started was the boss, which is a motorcycle club, did this in 2006. It's 8 years ago, right? Because this is the 8th running.
Yeah.
They just challenged themselves to drive the Northern Loop non-stop. And it became a yearly event in which they started opening up to other motorcycle clubs and eventually cars.
Well, I mean, I have to say it was definitely an experience. I mean, something, you know what? Somebody asked me if I'd do it again. I'll be perfectly honest, I was a little bit apprehensive about joining only because of the...
Is it safety? Is it safety?
It's difficult for me to write about it because I might be condoning...
Yeah.
And that's where, especially when you're talking mainstream media and newspaper magazine, I didn't want... It's a tricky thing.
understand,
I wrote
yeah.
about it once. It was a fantastic
Yeah.
experience. I wouldn't swap it for anything. Well, I actually think of a couple of things I'd swap it for, but no, it's a great experience. Super, super great experience. But it reached that stage where I didn't know anymore how to write about
Yeah.
it and what to say.
You only need to do it
because-
once to know you've
Yeah.
done it
But-
and experience it.
So I said, no more. But then, you know what? After a while, I started thinking,
You love to compete.
I
kids.
would
Yeah.
do it
Yeah,
in
you
an
would
old
do it.
car.
yeah.
In what?
An older car.
Older car.
Without being pressured for the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think the first year when we were doing it, when I was with Elbert, you're kind of, oh, come on, because there was a guy in front of
Yeah.
us, and I realized it's wrong.
See, there was a
shouldn't go like
difference.
that.
So it was stressful
when
for
we
you.
did it together, it felt like a race.
It felt like a race.
You know, my
Okay.
past 2 runnings, there was no race. We weren't jockeying for position.
Yeah, so just enjoy it because there are some priceless moments,
Oh,
like when you pull over,
sunrise.
like sunrise. Oh,
Oh.
and
But the thing is, you can't stop because you're trying to
Doesn't
reach
matter.
the.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't,
Doesn't
yeah.
matter.
But you know what?
Just seeing it,
The
right?
truth is, most guys stop. They see the sunrise, they stop, they take a picture.
Yeah.
So
just
this,
imagine.
it's up to you how you want to do
It's
it.
like it's just like a marathon, you know. There are people who are competitive, people who really want to finish in the top 10, top whatever, and most of them just want to
You
finish.
just want to finish.
Just want to finish and get the jersey.
Or a personal record, at least.
Or a personal
something.
record. And having said that, I would like to pick up a nice older car, something comfortable, something a pleasure to drive, and just take it at my own pace. And
Since you already mentioned an old car, what would that be? The top of your
oh,
head.
good, that's
Just curious, Jace.
curious. Oh man, I haven't really given it much thought, but I wouldn't mind. Oh God, I'd love. I mean, it's almost impossible to get one. The Skyline, you know, those original
yeah.
Skylines.
But you know, speaking of old cars, the minis were out there again.
oh,
for this
minis would
running.
be. But I wouldn't.
I
that be
mean,
just too.
I know, and
torturous?
it's quite torturous, but they did it and they finished.
Wow.
There were I don't know if there were
These
three
are
of them.
old mini.
The
Old
original
minis,
minis.
yeah. Oh my
Did they have
gosh.
like the rally?
That is
Monte Carlo
insane.
set up.
Yeah, with extra
Wow.
extra wheel on the roof rack and all.
Ah, there
and
were-
last year they had a
Wow.
Combi as a backup vehicle.
Oh,
It's really
nice.
fun.
I can just imagine how tired
So
you get.
so
after-
it doesn't
after
matter
that.
what you take. The fact that in fact, if you're asking me if you'd ask me if I'll do it again next year, I will. But this time I'll take my wife. I want her to see the sights. I want her to
Yeah,
see the route.
it is.
And do it together with her. I don't need to drive fast with her.
All right. Well, we pretty much got to wrap it up
Wow.
there, but just a very quick update on F1. It's about 60 days away now, 63 days, I think.
Are you going to?
I would want to go. I'd really want to go, but
Is it March
that's your
13th?
favorite.
It's March 13th.
yeah, I think it's March
Exactly.
13. Now, there's still a couple of vacant seats, right?
Yeah.
Sauber's got one.
Yeah.
Who else has got a vacant seat?
HRT, but they're lost now.
The safety car's got this extra seat.
the medics too.
Yeah, and that's
Sid,
probably
Sid
gonna be
Watkins
more-
is no longer riding.
Yeah, it's
so
gonna be
yeah.
more competitive. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
than the HRTs. But Marussia, what's up with Marussia?
They're in. But
They're in under
I,
Marussia.
yeah, I have to admit, I haven't been following.
Okay,
but
I-
I'm on break too.
I also thought, yeah, I know. I usually always start cram about a month before,
Yeah.
2 weeks before. I start cramming with the news. But I know that Sauber still got a seat. I heard that Kobayashi has raised something like 10.5 million.
Wow, I hope he gets to drive. I really
Through
want to see
public,
that.
huh?
Yeah.
Now my question is, if he doesn't get a seat, does he give the money back?
Or does he buy a seat? Well, yeah. he
Right? I
doesn't
mean,
get a
if
seat,
he's
you're
getting
right.
donations from people.
Oh my god, how are you gonna give it back?
It's like going
That's
to a
so
wedding
hard.
and then they call off the wedding and he keeps the gifts. That's,
Yeah.
that's bad.
I guess, yeah, you
That's
do.
bad.
That's a lot of hard work giving it back.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's you think it's not like one
Yeah,
sponsor.
I know.
Charity, maybe.
Yeah.
Charity would be a good
Yeah,
thing,
that- I
especially
think that would
charity in motorsports, I guess.
You're right.
Yeah,
Would
absolutely.
be
All right.
a more prudent thing
Which
to
is
do.
HRT. That's a charity.
But not a very good one.
All right, we got to wrap it up there. We'll be back again next week for more of your motoring diet. So just tune in, and if you have any questions, you can always go to our Facebook page. It is just look for Counterflow there. You can't really miss it. And
And to listen live, nmfnetwork.tv. And
Alright.
thanks to Beyond the Box, we're here at Beyond the Box, and the name of the network is New Media Factory.
all right, and thanks also to Albert
Oh,
for
great.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right,
My
Albert, now
pleasure
he's going to
being
race
here.
out for you. Watch. Best time to get.
Sorry, I don't have a car.
Drive safely.
Bye.